Good evening and welcome to the Executive Suite. And I'm your host, Roxanne St. Clair. And I do apologise for the delay in start today. We had some technical hitches with my guest getting onto the live today, so I can see him. So I'm just going to try and invite. Oh, it's not letting me invite him to come and join. So let me see. I could try and add him on to join. So we interview started. So thank you for bearing with us. It's just saying that it's adding him now. But, oh, yes, we can see his hands. When he moves his hand, we can get started. All right. Hi, Sheldon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, just about. Just about. Can you hear
Wonderful.
me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you fine. So, as I was saying to everyone, good evening and thank you for being patient with us and joining us here on Inspired to Achieve Global TV. And we're in the executive suite for our Monday evening chat. And as I said, today I'm joined by none other than Mr. Sheldon St. Clair. Those of you who are familiar with the platform have probably caught his show a couple of times. And I can see Robert's joined us. Hi, Robert. Thank you for persevering with us and joining. It's a pleasure to have you. And if you hadn't heard, I'm actually interviewing Sheldon today. And hi, Susan. Thank you for joining. And yes, Sheldon, we love to see your hands. But we're not palm reading today. So
Okay, I can hear you now.
So yeah, so Sheldon, okay, we've all started late. So would you like to just introduce yourself for any viewers that do not know who you are and know what you do, and yeah, just introduce yourself to our
Oh,
viewers.
hi, everybody. I'm Sheldon St. Clair, and I also broadcast a project management show on the Yes You Can Inspire to Achieve channel. I'm a project management professional, been in the industry for about 20 years, mostly doing project management, mostly setting up and managing PMOs, project management offices, and I'm excited to be here. A bit tired, but still excited as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that introduction. So, okay, so you're saying that you've been in the project management industry for 20 plus years. And what got you into project management?
That's a good question. I hope they're all not going to be as difficult as that. I suppose, yeah, when I first, I'm rehashing a bit of what I did last week, actually. When I first kind of like started in project management, I started off as a programmer. Um, and that kind of suited my personality in that I didn't really want to talk to a lot of people, just wanted to be given work and let me get on with it. And then after a couple of years on that, I finally decided that I wanted to engage and talk to people. So I went into analysis work, mainly business analysis. So that's where you're kind of you're taking the requirements of the user, of your client, and you're recording it or transcribing it in a way that the programmers can understand and they can code and do the work, hopefully to give the users or the end user or the customer or the client what they want. So I did that for a while, and then kind of I decided that I wanted to manage and control people, and that's when I went into project management. And yeah, it's been difficult actually trying to get people to do things that you want them to do and they don't want to do it. And it's like, okay, how do you manage people? You can't sack them. So therefore you need to negotiate, you need to threaten, you need to compromise, you need to engage, you need to listen, you need to communicate.
So it's funny you should say that because I came across a quote last Thursday and it basically was defining leadership. And it was saying that some leadership is about having a vision and encouraging people to do what you want them to do and feel happy about doing so. So would you align that to being a project manager in terms of being a leader and being able to share a vision of whatever path you want people to take and encouraging them to take that path?
Nowadays, nowadays the answer is yes. I think kind of like the society we live in now is a very kind of like flat structure. You haven't got the hierarchy, and you haven't got the respect that in my day when I first started out, you called everyone sir. You touch people's foot, you touch your forelock. I had an acronym on my terminal which everybody used in those days. It was called JFTI, just F do it. I won't swear. Yeah, just F do it. That was basically kind of like the rule that we, whether you like to do it or not, whether you thought it was in your interest or not, you just did it because you had to, or you got sacked, or you got punished in a certain way. So that was the background that I kind of grew up in. So I've had a lot of learning, a lot of changing, a lot of developing to go through in terms of mindset changing to this new reality where you've got to engage with people. Leaders are different now. And leadership is different now. Being a manager or a supervisor is different now. The terms empowering didn't exist in my day. What does that mean, empowering? Is that a soap powder or something? But
Well,
nowadays you need to do that.
it's funny you mentioned that, because when you say that leadership's different and, back in the day things were done differently, there was a different work ethic, because I think more so that the work ethic, if I can speak English, the work ethic back in, say, the 80s, for example, was that you were there to get a job done, and your primary purpose was get the job done. And it wasn't about, it's not my job. It wasn't, something had to be done and you had to find the best way to get it done. Whereas it seems to be now, people are there and it's almost, you should feel grateful that they're actually there rather than the fact that they're there to perform a job. And it may be an age thing where it's deemed, well, you're getting paid. So, having had quite a few years of experience and having to almost reinvent yourself and stay up to date and be able to work with different kinds of generations, because now you've got people that would have trained, say, in the, some people still have trained in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, 90s, and the millennium. So you've got so many different generations of people in the workplace at the moment. How do you adapt yourself in order to be able to communicate with the different people and their different needs as such?
I suppose it's reading, studying, learning. So it's a different sort of mindset. In fact, I'm starting a new role in the next kind of like month or so, and this will be my first role in the UK for about 4 years, and I'm kind of I'm excited by it. I'm quite frightened as well, because 4 years ago, people behaved in a slightly different way. I'm not quite sure what to expect. The work environment's changed, the people have changed, expectations have changed as well. So up until now, all I can say is that, okay, I've done lots of posts about project management, so and leadership and what it means to be a leader. So I'm hoping that what I've read, what I've listened to, will kind of like will serve me well. I've got about 15% on my phone. I'm actually going to plug it into a charger. So excuse my hands as I try and do that.
Okay, well, hopefully you can still hear me while
Yeah, I can hear you.
So in terms of, okay, you mentioned starting a new role. I know you've had quite a bit of experience in working with different types of people and with different ethos. And you're just saying it's your first role in the UK in about 4 years. So I know your previous role had been in Saudi Arabia. What was it like for you going out to Saudi and not necessarily knowing the culture that well and adapting into that environment and being able to perform at a level that, say, you would have performed at in the UK?
It was different. It was different, and it was difficult, and it was exciting. When you mentioned about not knowing the culture that well, I didn't know the culture at all. In fact, when I accepted the role in Saudi Arabia, I assumed that Saudi Arabia was a bit like Dubai, which we've holidayed in, or a bit like Egypt, which is where I honeymooned in, or a bit like Tunisia, where when I was working for a travel company, I kind of went there. So I thought it was a bit like that. Okay, I've been to Dubai. It's a nice place. It must be the same. And it was totally different. with a bit of a culture shock. When I signed the contract and then I went on to Wikipedia or Google to find out a bit about Saudi, I think I was a bit taken aback in terms of.
Oh, I think you're frozen a bit. Oh, yeah, he's frozen. Okay, I'm not sure if you as the viewers can actually hear Sheldon. I think his screen's frozen for a little while, but hopefully it will correct itself and he'll be back on with us. But yeah, so as you can see, again, from a project management leadership and how do you perform and work as a leader? And as he said, you have to be adaptable because if you're dealing with different generations of people, people who are used to doing things differently, how do you communicate with them at the level that they can understand and still want to perform and get the job done? And this is one of the key things as a busy executive. You know, if you're a business owner and you want people to perform and produce, then how do you get them to do it? How do you communicate at that level so that people are happy to do whatever the task requires and the job gets done? And I hope Sheldon can come back on to the broadcast with us and we can continue the interview because I think it's slightly different hearing it from him from a project management perspective. And again, if a lot of your work is project based and you're working in different teams, to be able to adapt to those different teams, to get that team dynamic right and get people to perform. So it may be that you're in a project team for a few months. You could be in there for a year. It could be a couple of years. But how do you get that team to gel and work together from day one so that you can meet your project objectives? And these are the questions I'd love to ask him if he can come back on and join us. So I'm hoping that he does because we already came on late. So we've had some major technical issues today, but persevere. You know, we were talking about getting the job done. So, you know, what I'll do, whilst we're waiting to see if he can come back on, let me read some of your comments in here. So bear with me on this. So, okay, so Rob, oh, you've seen a green screen in his future, Rob. That's interesting. Maybe you and him will have a conversation about that. So, okay, so what were you saying about millennials? Oh, okay. Well, you know, it's funny, Robert, you make the comment about millennials, and what's interesting is that we have a young son, he's late teens, and his comment is always that us as the older generation tend to belittle them and find fault with them and what they do. However, most of what they use and the principles they've adopted has come from what we've either created or how we've trained them. So as much as we can comment and we criticize about the millennials and their work ethic, their expectations, they're wanting everything now, how much of that as parents or an older generation have we instilled in them? And do we hold our hands up and take responsibility for some of that? Or do we say, no, they've made their own choices and it's just the way they are because it's all of the external forces that have got them having that sense of entitlement? And I think that's quite a way of looking at it. They seem to have grown up with a sense of entitlement. If I want something, why can't I have it now? Whereas I know back in the day it was you saved for what you wanted. You know, it was a big thing to acquire, say, a new car, or when you're buying your house, or, you know, to get anything new. You put in time and commitment in order to get it, and therefore it was a delayed gratification rather than an instant gratification mindset. So yeah, so it'd be interesting for us to have a group conversation around, you know, how much responsibility do we take for the actions of the millennials and how much is down to them themselves and their own environment that they've created for themselves. So thanks for that one, Robert. What else have we got in there? Oops. All right, I like this one. So you're saying that Sheldon got you interested in processes, Robert. Brilliant. So so Sheldon's back. Let me see if I can invite him back in again. Let's see, and we can continue with our interview. as I would like you to hear from him rather than just me today, as he's gone to the trouble to be available for us. So let's see if he's coming back here. Oh, fabulous! Whoa, well done.
Hi. Yeah. So yeah, as I was mentioning, working out in Saudi Arabia was interesting. I was working with senior staff, but a different culture. So I was working in a culture where family is important to people. So they didn't necessarily spend a lot of time at work. You're having to spend a lot of time cajoling your staff. My contractual hours was about, what, 35 hours a week, and I was working about 60 in order to kind of cover for my staff that worked 25, 30 hours. And also, I was able to cope with the work pressures by doing a lot of work myself, doing my tasks and doing their tasks, effectively kind of like using them just to rubber stamp what I've done. Okay, that's not the way that you're supposed to work. That's probably broken all the leadership roles or the leadership roles and responsibilities. You're supposed to empower people. You're supposed to negotiate. You're supposed to compromise. You're supposed to, kind of get them on side. But at the end of the day, I had to deliver. So I knew what I knew what I wanted to do, and I did it. So sometimes as a leader,
So
as a
if you
manager,
had to do it again, oh, don't
that's
tell
a
me
good
you're frozen
question. Yeah.
again. Right. So if you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
Um, That's a good question. I think if I had to do it again, I probably will. I probably would engage with people a bit better. I think kind of, well, I did that anyway, in terms of doing the vision and selling the vision to them, showing them how they would benefit, align my vision to theirs. I did all of that. But I think sometimes I think one person, I probably would have sacked people. I probably would have replaced the team, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Right.
so yeah, I probably would have done that. But I think sometimes you can kind of like do all the things that you've read, the things that you've done, but at the end of the day, you've got to wield the axe. I think probably would have and should have done that. Yeah.
Hmm. Now, would you say, because okay, you mentioned about wielding the axe, but is that a first resort or a last resort
Oh,
type of
so
thing? Yeah.
no, it's a last resort. But if you kind of like, I did have the opportunity to do that. To be honest, there's one person who was not underperforming, but not kind of not willing to do what the task that was required. They had their own agenda. And again, sometimes in your work environment, you may have somebody that's working to a different agenda. And also, me being a foreigner working in a country, and sometimes people don't see why you're there. Yeah, particularly when they feel that they can do the job just as well as you. Um, um, and also there was here's someone from Europe, coming into this country telling them what to do. Again, from a cultural perspective, you may not always be welcomed. Yes. Now, as a leadership person, what I did do, and what I did do well was stakeholder management, where by accident I quickly kind of like got my influencers on board, my champions on board, my surrogates on board as well. So when I did face kind of hostilities or problems, I had my people that, almost the senior people to have my back and to protect me. And so that works. Stakeholder management is a good thing. I didn't kind of cover it. I wasn't successful in that totally. I didn't kind of like get to know all the requirements, all the quick wins totally. I missed someone out who was very key to the project later on down the line. But stakeholder management is a good thing.
Right.
Communication
Can I
is a good
stop
thing as
you
well.
there? Can I just stop you there a
Of
minute? Because you
course.
mentioned about missing somebody key earlier on. So what, with that knowledge, and what tips would you now give to somebody that say is going afresh into a project environment and having to be aware of who your key stakeholders are? How would you guide them to actually acquire that knowledge as quickly as possible and therefore forging that relationship as early on in the day as they can?
Um, there's a technique called stakeholder analysis. This is basically where you write down all of your stakeholders, all the people that you come into contact with that can harm or hinder or help you succeed in your project. So for instance, if kind of like you're running an event, your stakeholders will be your suppliers, your speakers, your catering staff, your admin people, the hoteliers, the people that kind of do hospitality, anyone and everyone. So you write that down and then you ask the question, could this person help me or hinder me? The mistake that I made was that my boss that I was actually installing this project on his behalf, I didn't write him down as a stakeholder because I assumed that, well, he's an IT director, he would want this. And in fact, he was the one that didn't want this project at all.
Wow.
And I didn't find that out until later on in the day. So his boss's boss wanted the project, he didn't. So therefore, because I couldn't get to his boss's boss, so therefore, that's a problem. And how, if I was to do it again, how would I do that? I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I'm not quite sure, kind of like, people may have suggestions in terms of, well, if your boss doesn't want it, but your boss's boss does, what do you do? Now the project, gone.
But in terms of, when did you become aware that this person wasn't really keen on the project? Was it earlier on, or was it later on in the day whilst you were already working on the project?
After I left the project. No, that's
Wow,
not true.
so
No,
that's
that's not.
even
No, that's
worse.
not. No, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. I started having an inkling when the project went live successfully, under budget, on time, with quality. And part of my role was to produce reports. And therefore, I was showing information about the state of his projects to other people that he didn't want to be shown to. It wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. But the fact that, again, in that culture, you don't always show people what you're doing. And because of the nature of my work, I was doing that, then that became problematic for him. Because when people started seeing, okay, what's your budget? What's your expenditure? Where are you actually spending your money? Which business objectives are these projects supporting? So from PMO point of view, this is brilliant. This is what you want to show. I was doing my job. But it became problematic for him because people started asking questions of him. And because of the language problem, I didn't speak Arabic, and then a lot of people who he didn't really speak. He didn't speak English. He understood a bit.
Okay, can I cut you there, because
Of course.
what that's also showing is that it's very important to understand the politics of the organization as well as your stakeholders. So there's quite a bit then that you have to be aware of and take into consideration if you're going to be working on a project. It's not just, okay, this is the requirement, this is what we can do, this is how we go from A to B. It's very much about, well, okay, this is the project, this is the environment, this is how we go from A to B, but who are the stakeholders? What is the political environment in which we're operating? And what is the real agenda here? And what do people really want? And how can we deliver it?
That's
and
right.
how do we keep everybody happy, basically?
Yeah. In some jobs that you work in, stakeholder management or knowing the politics of the culture isn't necessarily that important. You just got to do your job. But in the level that I was working at, I didn't realize until late that stakeholder management or stakeholder analysis was key to to this particular role. And in fact, that's what I'm taking with me into the new role that I'm going to do, in terms of quickly gather who are the people that can help me or hinder me. So I want to be conducting stakeholder analysis from day one, and finding out, so okay, keep them on board and talking to them and communicating to them, not necessarily about what I'm doing, but what it is they expect from me, what it is they want from me. And that's going to be quite key. Yeah. And
Okay, well,
again,
thank you for
yeah,
that.
sorry.
Well, okay, so what I'd like to do is to sort of get into a bit more around, because you've got lots of experience within the project management arena. You've worked in different types of organizations. You've worked overseas also doing project management. So you've seen, there's quite a plethora of knowledge and experience there. So if looking in your crystal ball, what do you see ahead as in the future of project management?
Um,
Have you frozen again? I think the screen is frozen again. So let's see if it will unfreeze itself. So as you've heard from Sheldon himself, he's been in project management for a few decades. He's worked in, it's quite political, and with cultural differences, it's very important to take those on board. What I would like to speak to is those people of you who are either viewing now or will view in the future. If you're thinking about doing business internationally, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs watch the show, how do you take into account the customs of the countries that you want to do business in? Because that will be crucial to one, you winning the contracts or winning the clients or suppliers overseas. But how do you maintain those relationships? Because different countries will relate to you differently, whether you're male or female, for example. And these are particular things that I think sometimes if you're in the UK, the USA, Canada, we take for granted that I want to do business, I'm in this arena and this is what I want to get done. But if you're working on an international level, you do have to bear in mind the customs of the country that you're going into. And it may be, for example, personally as a woman, if I'm going into particular countries, I may have to negotiate at a different level, or I may even need to get a man to come and negotiate within that country. And as sort of to some women, okay, it would be horrific to think that, well, you cannot go in, it's your own business, but you cannot go in and negotiate for yourself because the customs of the country that you're going into dictate that women do not partake in a male environment, for example. But once you're in there and you're doing business, that's a different story. So these are some of the things to consider when you're working internationally, when you're doing business internationally. What are the customs and the politics of the countries that you're dealing with? And Sheldon, thank you for coming back on and joining us again. You got cut off with your connection there. So I was just sharing with our viewers that, from your experience that you shared with us, how important it is for us to bear in mind the culture of the country. I agree that that's something that should be taken into consideration. Oh, we've lost him again. Wow, we're really losing the connection today. One, I think, okay, time-wise, we are at the end of what would have been the normal broadcasting time. So thank you for bearing with us this evening. And the connection wasn't brilliant, but we got some insights. Whatever insights you did get have been useful for you and informative. Do continue to like, comment and share. We will get back to responding to any questions that you may have and you may post in the feed, and we will get back to you over time. So I just want to thank you for being here today, and once again, if you found this useful or informative, do like, comment and share, because that's how we keep others informed as well as ourselves. And I just really want to thank you for spending the time with us today, and look forward to connecting with you again on Friday, right back here in the Executive Suite. And we will have some pleasant time to have some chats. So whatever goals you have for this week, go out and be awesome. Have a fabulous week. And, keep getting those wins. Robert, keep sharing your daily wins, because that's how we feel good about what we're doing. That's how we encourage each other. And why shouldn't we end 2018 with a really strong finish so that we can start 2019 from a really good place? So take care and have a fabulous week. Bye for now.